So the trick is actually to think about your stories in reverse, meaning you start with the lesson first.
Be manly and the legends of humanity. Welcome to the Fellowship of Honourable Men and Women Role Models for Boys and Men, because you have the power to be a man in all its glory.
So how can you effectively use storytelling techniques to engage both men and female listeners in a professional setting?
You give me an easy ball. I like it, David. So for me, storytelling is the same context throughout. So let's start with the principle, then we can apply it accordingly. So the context is really simple. Great stories often have a key lesson attached to them. That's why Les Brown always says that never tell a point, or rather, never make a point without telling a story, and never tell a story without making a point. What does he mean here, Damien? What he means is if you have a great story, but you don't have a key lesson, you go nowhere. We all have that friend at a bar, at a work setting, who comes up to us and says, "Hey, Damien, you wouldn't believe what happened last week." You go, "What happened last week?" And then 25 minutes later, the guy's still rambling. You're going, when is this story going to end? Like, where's this person going with this? Like, what happened? Like, what's so because it's so long, and women tend to tell stories like that too, but because of the meta report, they just keep talking and talking all the details, but you're like, what actually happened? So if there's no key lesson, the story falls flat. So the trick is actually to think about your stories in reverse, meaning you start with the lesson first. You go, what's the punchline? Okay, the punchline is I got engaged to Julie, or I met George Bush at a dinner. Okay, let's say that I didn't. None of these things happened in my life. Let's just say that's the key lesson I want to pre-frame, because you might think Brenden, you actually had dinner with George Bush, what the hell? Right? So that's the
From
key
Minnesota.
lesson. Right, from Minnesota. And then it's reverse engineering what actually happened that led to that story. So I'll give you that lesson rather. So I'll give you an example with me. A lot of the times when I show up on podcasts, one of my key lessons is anybody can be a great speaker. And that not just me, because I was born this amazing speaker. Anyone can be a great speaker. So what story do I tell in my life to prove that key lesson deeply? Well, the answer is really simple. What you talk about is my personal story. I have a physical disability in my left arm. Look, it's crooked, right? I spoke my whole life in a language I didn't know. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. If I could be a great speaker, so can you. So notice how the story is good, even if it's not the full flesh story, but it leads to the key lesson. And the only nuance I would draw between men and women is, I mean, it's not one I necessarily apply in practice, because I just use both angles, but I'll just teach it for an educational kind of point. But the key is you want to do both regardless of the gender. With guys, what I've felt is guys like getting to the point. They like hearing the highlights of a story, like what actually happened. We're kind of the big ahas, the big kind of, it's always about something big. It's like, what's the big key insight? What's like the cool thing that happened? Women, yes, they value that, but it's more so on an average basis. How did you feel in the interaction of that story? So, for example, if I say something like, which is kind of what's one of the stories actually where I pull on the emotion? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's say when I was in first grade, if I'm a guy, I would say, if I'm talking to a group of guys, I'll say, yeah, I was really scared of speaking, and look how terrible I was. And because I was so terrible, I if I could be a great speaker, imagine what you could do. Whereas with women, it's a little bit different. I still remember when I was in the first grade, ladies, and I was looking at my classroom, and I remember feeling horrified. Even a day leading up to the event, I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to speak the language. And I could feel the sweat dripping down my face and how worried I was. And then even when I got out after class, people would make fun of my arm and they would laugh at me. So men enjoy these details, but women eat those details up. They go, oh my God, Brenden is so caring. He's so cool. He's so open with his emotions. So that's the only nuance I draw. But honestly, I don't really apply it based on gender. I just do both.
Before you go, you're invited to continue the Be Manly and the Legends of Humanity journey. Subscribe to our YouTube and become a patron, where you can become a courageous Crusader, a wise warrior, a daring Dynamo, and even an ascending Avenger. Here you'll find all the tools to become a man in all its glory. We're honoured to walk side by side with you on this extraordinary adventure. Together, we're unleashing the full power of manhood, creating a better world for everyone.